Hello. Welcome to the We Shape podcast, everyone.
Hi.
I got Nina here today.
What?
It's your first episode back since having a baby and your last episode of the podcast.
It is. It's a twofer.
It's a twofer.
Oh, you just went straight to the punchline on that episode.
Did. Sorry.
Yeah, so tee it up. Let's talk about it.
Well, this will be the last episode of this season, a farewell of the year, and a farewell to you as a co-host, but I'm not getting too sad because you still are here. You're still working with
I'm working
We Shape.
behind the scenes.
Yes.
I'm the one making the magic happen for the podcast, but when you're not looking.
Yes. So it's going to be the last episode with Nina and the last episode of the year and the shortest episode of the year because I really messed us all up this morning.
We're done.
There's coffee spills and, all kinds of issues.
Well, we only had 30 minutes to record this before our next guest, and then I ran into my neighbor downstairs and was like, oh my God, I'm late. And then I ran up, and then right when we were ready to record, my coffee spilt everywhere. So
what's
it's okay.
the lesson? What's the lesson there?
That I probably should have alarms going off that like 6 people are waiting for you upstairs and don't talk to your neighbor.
Sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
Hey, that's a good lesson. That's something I try to teach the kids all the time.
Yeah.
To go fast, you must go slow.
I'm always trying to remind Cody that.
Ooh,
my husband
yeah.
adorably has ADHD, which I know you relate to. And
I don't know anything about
what is
that.
that like? What does that feel like? And last night I was teasing him because we got 2 bottles of ranch from Costco, and he's a big ranch guy. It's fine. I don't want to talk about it. But he put the open one in the cabinet and the closed one in the refrigerator. And I was like, sometimes you have to slow it down, my dude. Like, I love you. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
I want to just call out a little bit that I think that about 98% of your marital friendly conflicts are around food, but specifically
Ranch dressing?
condiments.
Condiments,
Like you'll be like
huh?
Cody. I don't know if peanut butter is considered. You'll be like,
Oh, yeah.
Cody and the peanut butter, Cody and the ketchup, Cody and the ranch. I'm like, what is happening at your home
He's a
with
sauce-
condiments?
He's a sauce guy.
Cody bought another jam, and we already had 3 in the fridge. I'm so upset.
He just believes in having a lot of different
Condiments
yeah.
and flavors and anything you can
We
do
all
to
got our
spice it
stuff.
up.
You don't want to run out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
God forbid.
I think there could be worse things in a partnership than
Totally.
excessive condiment use.
Definitely.
I feel like people think this episode might be worthless, but I've already heard some beautiful stuff. Like, we've all got our stuff, right? And just to accept that and learn to love it and appreciate it. And sometimes you got to go slow to go fast. Those are some beautiful lessons.
Well,
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great year.
now we're on time. I mean, honestly, though, whenever I'm having those moments of like you're driving me nuts, I mean that doesn't happen often, Tyler, but never.
Not often in the hours.
In the last 30
perspective.
minutes. But I do, if I can, go to this space. Go, what is it in me that because like, have you ever heard that thing where it's like whatever is bothering you in someone else is actually a part of you that is bothering you?
I might
Not
butcher
true.
this,
I
but
do
it's
not.
the Ho'oponopono. Is that the
Is
right?
that the guy?
I think that's the name of it. I might be butchering that. I don't want to be disrespectful, but yeah, the Kahuna philosophy around anytime you are looking at things outside of ourselves that aren't going our way. Instead of saying, I want that to change or communicating about that to change, it's just look inside and change what's inside, and then the whole world changes outside of you. So if you've never read the book, what's it called? Zero Limits.
Oh, yeah, that's
it's
a good one.
Fantastic book talking about this doctor who did this with patients in a psych ward, never interacted with them, but ended up healing a lot of them through healing himself. It sounds crazy, but check it
Whoa.
out. It's worth a read.
Yeah, he didn't write the
Damn.
book, but he had somebody write the book about him, and he
Yeah.
interviewed him.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was actually was just talking about this the other day with somebody. But there always is an opportunity to go within, right? We actually just went to a parent teacher meeting with our kids' teacher, and it was so fascinating because he was talking about boundaries with kindergartners. And at the end, he said, well, if you're really struggling with your kindergartner and boundaries, the only thing I can really say is that you should go inward and do that work first, because that's where this stuff really actually happens. And both Tyler and I looked at each other and said, oh, shit, we have some work to do.
Man, I needed like 3 days of rest after that just
Yeah.
to process the impact of what he said. But
I
hey,
mean,
let's make this
yeah.
episode less about us jibber jabbering.
Well, that's like that's like
yeah.
who we are as friends.
But I think it'd be interesting. So, as you've mentioned very casually, Nina is exiting the podcast. We're sad to see her go, but with the little baby at home, there's, a shift in priorities and timing and things like that, which obviously we totally understand. But I'm curious, just a question for you. Maybe I'll just shoot a question your way. What was there anything that being on the podcast has done for you? Like any lessons that you learned from our guests over the last
good
year?
one.
Is there anything that you've kind of heard that just impacted you in a different way. I personally see you in a much different way already, just because we're constantly surrounded by people who are exposing this message that we're also exposing around kind of self-judgment and this toxic culture we're steeped in. But maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously we've had a lot of really incredible guests, and so many of them were people I came across in my scrolling and was like, we have to have this person. Like, they have such an awesome message to share. So big thank you to all the guests that I've been able to talk with over this last year. It's been so much fun, and I've learned so many things. But I think the biggest thing, which is going to sound, I don't know, it ties into all of our guests and their message, but is that, you know, this is like a public format, and that is something that I was pretty uncomfortable with when we started doing this.
Like, I should, can I say it? Like, can I just say, like, pretty uncomfortable might be an understatement.
I was like, no.
Like, I
I'm
saw
not
you,
doing
I
that.
saw you wrestle. I saw somebody make a bad comment about that,
Yeah,
and you were
I
like,
hate
dude, this
dude.
is miserable.
So, and I want to say that, like, it's given me this opportunity to kind of like give myself a lot of grace and forgiveness around like just being a person in a public way, which is something I wouldn't have had exposure to in any other circumstance than this one. And we've had these amazing guests. Like, I've been able to learn to kind of like trust myself. Like, I'm just a person. I'm just going to show up and do the best that I can. And like, if somebody had a big feeling, or there was maybe a comment or an email we received that was like, hey, you said this and you shouldn't have, or whatever, I would always take that into account and think about it and try to learn from it. But at the same time, like, I couldn't take it home, and I couldn't like unpack it and like make it this big giant thing where I was getting harder on myself or feeling really like, you know, angry towards me, because I am doing the best I can. And I think that this was really an awesome opportunity to do that, because not everyone sees that so clearly. I think like we obviously walk around in life and we are feeling judged or do get judged by other people, but we are like, well, that's just part of the deal, whatever. But when you're kind of placed into this situation where like you're really on a stage that lots of other people are looking at, and there's a lot more space for a soundbite, which is taken out of context or whatever,
Totally.
and public facing, where people are seeing your face, what you look like, what you like. Maybe you had a great day that day, maybe you had a shitty day that day, and you still had to show up. Like, then having to allow myself to just be and like just let it go and really be like, I cannot care about that. I do not have the space to.
Yeah.
And that was like really giving me a lot of permission to show up again more authentically, which we talk about a lot of on this podcast. Kind of trusting yourself, deepening that connection with self. Like, it kind of like was this weird experiment of all of the things we talked about in the podcast, but like in real life happening to me by being on the podcast.
That's beautiful. I got two things to say about that. One, people are assholes. They're judgy,
They can
and they
be.
just throw their shit at you, and really that's all the stuff that they're judging themselves upon, right? And on the flip side of that, what I hear you saying, and I think is so valuable, is it's really easy to get caught up in letting yourself think what other people think, or taking what they think and making it what you think,
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. And what really matters is what you think about you.
Yeah.
And the stronger that connection with self is, the less anybody can pull you down. And that is beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can say something and have it taken out of context or whatever, and then someone might say, well, you meant this, and you can know in your heart, no, I didn't. Right?
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying that I can fix every wrong in the world with that, but I do think it's valuable to say, hey, someone might think something about me that I know to not be true. And like, rather than let that cloud my vision of myself, I'm going to just remember that that's not true about me.
And just like you might have been having a day where we, you know, this happens to me, like we say something and we don't really mean it, right? And then somebody holds it to us, but like maybe what they're saying is because they're having a bad day
Yeah.
and they don't really necessarily mean it. I think oftentimes we get caught up in the day and we get caught up in these moments. And if we zoom out, most people are pretty kind on the inside.
They
And a
mean
lot
to
of the
be.
things that we do that don't come across like that might be coming from a different place
I saw
other than that kindness.
this beautiful thing happened yesterday at Safeway, and it was so sweet, and I wanted to bring it here because it reminded me kind of, again, of what we're talking about, which is that if you have that effect on someone, then they might take that energy and take it somewhere else, and that can be positive or negative. But I saw this young woman in Safeway. She was probably like 20 years old, and there was this really, really, really elderly woman with her husband walking, you know, in opposing directions. And this little old lady was in a very sweet little outfit. She had like little maroon pants on and a matching little maroon jacket, and she looked great. And this young woman said, "You look really beautiful." And the little old lady was like, you could just see, she was just like, "Wait, what? Like me? You know, I'm..."
Aw.
And she turned, because I was behind them all watching this happen. And she turned to her husband, and you could see like this little like glee on her face, like that this beautiful little young woman had said to her, "You look beautiful today," and had clearly meant it. It seemed very genuine and like off the cuff. And I watched like the little ripple happen. And then, like, of course, it affected me, even though I had nothing to do with it. And I was
Right.
like, I'm going to go do something nice just for
Yeah,
somebody
just like
today.
kindness is there, yeah.
And it was just really sweet. I don't know. It just reminded me, like, we have that power every single day to make that choice. And the internet's a sketchy spot in that we can bring our negative, we can bring our positive, whatever. But, like, it's really a magnifying space. Because once you put something out there, it's kind of there forever. And just to remember that we can really have a big effect with little words, you know?
Little things make such a big impact, right? You had that little thing on the door. I think it was like a Mother Teresa quote, and it says, if you want to have an impact on world peace, go home and love your family. And I just love how simple that is, because so many people think they have to do all these big gestures and stuff. But man, it starts with sweeping your own porch, right?
Yeah.
Keeping your own place clean and recognizing if you can't show up and appreciate yourself and connect with yourself and have as much self-love as you can cultivate, then you're probably not going to be able to authentically offer that outside of yourself. And so it starts there. And it's so
Definitely.
important. And just little things, man. Just complimenting people on more than just their looks, on all
Definitely.
types of attributes that people are going. You know, I think it's important, especially with our younger generation, especially with our girls, to compliment creativity and kindness and intelligence and humor and all these other attributes that could be positively lifted up as well, and not
Yeah.
just 99%, oh, you're so pretty, you know, as like
Yeah.
the mainstay of things. But
And I
that's so
think
beautiful.
too, like being, you know, as people who've been listening for a long time know, like I had a baby and I had a baby girl. And this journey of being on this podcast and speaking with the experts we spoke with and having my own relationship with food and body and self kind of mature and change over this last year has been such a perfect timing.
Right.
Not only to go through a huge physical change in my body and have a lot of grace and acceptance for that, but then to be so steeped in this experience of like, how can I offer so much of what I've learned to this tiny being who has no idea what the world is like, you know, like I can imprint on her so many things. And regardless of the fact that she was, you know, born a girl, like if you were born a boy, whatever, but like having a child, having a next generation, I'm like, I feel more equipped to be able to offer a really beautiful way of looking at your own physical form and having a lot of kindness and love towards that, which I'm grateful for. So I don't know, it's been real.
Can I ask a question too? Like, it's really difficult, I think, oftentimes for women to go through that transition of becoming a mother that first time. So many changes happen in your body, and this, again, society doesn't really favor that unless you're one of like these few people who like naturally go back to where you were before, or if you put in this immense amount of effort to try and get there, which I don't think is necessarily the move either. But
Right.
how are you coping with that? How are you going through that process, and what lessons could you share with people maybe who are in that same boat, or maybe people are just like, whoa, like I'm not the same as I was before, and I'm struggling to accept that and appreciate that?
I mean, gosh, that's the $1,000 question, $1 million question, really. But I think that one thing that I always fall back on, which is kind of simplistic, but I really like it, is like if you're really, really hating everyone around you, you're probably hungry or tired, and same with if you're hating yourself. And so like I really try and check in with my physical needs when I'm having a bad day of like, you know, some days you feel like this is so beautiful, I have this baby and my body's so amazing, and some days you're like, this kind of sucks and it's not going to go back to how it was.
Yeah.
But also I have to say I had an ultimately really beautiful experience in becoming a mom, and I mean that's a story for a different day. We definitely maybe I'll make a guest appearance next year on the next season, but it's a long story. But I think that something we've echoed over and over and over again is just like, you know, not every day is going to be a banner day. And so like there are so many days where I'm like, this is so great, like I am feeling great, I love this new life and this new body, and there are days where it doesn't feel like that. And just to remember that like that's not permanent, like no one feeling is permanent, has been super helpful for that experience, I think. So if there's like a rough day, I'm like, oh, it's a rough day, wonder what tomorrow will look like, you know, and not like embody that or be like, this is my identity.
Or use that to fuel, well, I better do this diet then.
Yeah, no, I
Right.
have,
Because
yeah.
that's, you know, the pitfalls of that. So
Yeah.
I hear you saying being present with what is for that day.
Yeah.
And not, because I think people, they hate it and then they get attached to it, and then the next day they wake up and they're already there's so much momentum that it just keeps going.
Yeah, I try not to struggle against it. Like I try to like let the wave just kind of roll over me. And maybe, you know, and then usually when I have like a looser relationship with that, it tends to move on more quickly. You know, if I'm like, well, what if I did all these? What if I did 1,000 sit-ups right now? It's like, well, that's not really going to do anything, you know? Like, I don't know. So I think,
You know what would have happened? You would have taken the skin off of your tailbone and your butt cheeks
my
right
back
there.
would probably really
I have
freaking
literally
hurt.
done that routine, and it just takes the skin off your rear, and it doesn't do anything for your
know.
core.
I won't be doing that.
Yeah,
anytime
please
soon.
don't do 1,000 sit-ups.
But I also want to say before I go that I am so excited for our co-host coming up. I don't know if we're even allowed to talk about that or not. We are?
Why don't you do it? Why don't you do the
Okay,
honors?
I'm just so excited because I love her so much, and I know you guys, if you've been on our WeShip calls or whatever and have talked with me, you know I'm a huge fangirl. So we're going to be replacing me with the lovely and incredible Dr. Lisa Folden, who is such a wealth of information. She is just a darling human being, and like I couldn't be more excited to have her here with you guys. So if I could have handpicked someone, it would have been her. So I'm just
which
overjoyed.
is crazy. She was one of our guests, and I think
Yeah.
we got off the call and we're like, we love this woman.
Do you want to be friends?
Not only does she understand
Text me.
the mission part, this kind of toxic weight loss culture and whatnot, but she's a doctor of physical therapy,
She's
so she
incredible.
deeply understands movement too. So Katie and I were so grateful that she was willing to jump in and kind of slowly integrate herself more in what we're doing at WeShape, because
It's gonna be
she's
badass.
a great bridge to kind of, I think, more of the message and the understanding that you have, Katie, and more of kind of the movement side of things that I tend to talk about a little bit more. So I'm excited about that too.
Hell yeah. And if you guys miss me, you can always email me at podcast@weshape.com.
Yeah, Nina's still
She'll be
here.
there.
She's
She'll
not
be
going
there.
anywhere.
Also,
Finding
answer.
guests.
But I'll just say before we wrap that it's been so incredible that 15 years ago,
Oh my gosh.
our friendship, the foundation of our friendship was on what diet we're doing this week. Like literally that was that's how we connected with one another.
Yeah.
Was what is the diet we're going to do this week? And then we got to do 2 seasons of a podcast breaking down beliefs that were rooted in toxic weight loss culture.
Who would have thunk?
That is a really incredible thing. So I will
To the listeners out there, like, I would have never bet a dime on this
I mean,
coming to
it's-
fruition
yeah.
a few years ago, even a few years ago, even 2 years ago.
Yeah,
you
anything's
know?
possible.
Yeah.
So let's end
Truly.
on that. But we're so grateful for the 2
It's been
seasons
fun.
that you've been here, and I'll still see you this afternoon.
I'll literally see you in 5 minutes, but
But to all of our listeners, if you want to get in touch with us, don't forget to reach us at podcast@weshape.com. And you can also do a 2-week free trial at WeShape if you go to weshape.com/podcast.
Can I say one more thing? I know
One
we
more
usually
thing.
wrap there, but it's coming up the new year, and we're about to host
oh yeah.
a feel good challenge, right? And I think people love challenges, but we decided to do something a little different. Instead of it being like a weight loss challenge or whatever it may be, we're trying to help people learn how to take care of their bodies and get rid of the beliefs that are holding them back from appreciating their bodies. And so we do that as a service to our community, where you can get free access to everything we offer at WeShape during the Feel Good Challenge. So after January 1st, make sure to go to WeShape.com, check out our social medias. You'll find it if you're around. We're going to be shouting from the rooftops for the first week. And if you sign up, you can get it for free.
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks, Nina. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.